The ground shook violently beneath the bunker as another explosion hit somewhere above them. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the emergency lights flickered for the third time in an hour. In the corner of the cramped shelter, 8 soldiers from different worlds pressed themselves against the cold metal walls, their bodies rigid with fear. Commander Thalen's compound eyes darted around the room, checking on each member of his squad. His insectoid body clicked nervously as he counted them again. The Kelter soldier, Bryn, had his feathered wings wrapped tightly around himself, his beak chattering with stress. Morpha, the aquatic species representative, sat in her portable water tank, her gills pulsing rapidly as her body struggled to process oxygen through her panic. The 2 Drendak soldiers, reptilian brothers named Kess and Vorn, hadn't moved in over an hour, their survival instinct locking them into complete stillness. Everyone was accounted for. Everyone was terrified. Everyone except the human. Thalen's antennae twitched as he noticed something impossible. In the far corner of the bunker, partially hidden behind a stack of supply crates, the human soldier was lying on the bare metal floor. Her eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. And most incredibly soft sounds were coming from her mouth, a repetitive buzzing noise that Thalen's translator struggled to identify. She was sleeping. Another explosion rocked the bunker, closer this time. The lights went out completely for 5 full seconds before the backup systems kicked in. Bryn let out a terrified screech. Morpha's water splashed over the sides of her tank as she thrashed in panic. Kess and Vorn remained frozen, but Thalen could see the fear in their unblinking eyes. The human didn't move. Thalen clicked his way across the bunker floor, his 6 legs moving carefully around the scattered equipment. He stood over the human, staring down at her relaxed face. This had to be some kind of medical emergency. Perhaps humans went into a coma state when overwhelmed by fear. Perhaps her species simply shut down when faced with mortal danger. He reached out with one of his upper limbs and gently touched her shoulder. Nothing happened. He shook her slightly. Still nothing. Panic rose in Thalen's throat. The human was dying and he had no idea how to save her. "Specialist Grant," he said, his voice translator converting his clicks into standard coalition speech. "Nina Grant. Can you hear me?" The human's eyes opened immediately. They focused on him with perfect clarity. There was no confusion, no disorientation. She looked at him calmly, then stretched her arms above her head, her joints making small popping sounds that made Thalen flinch. "Commander," she said, her voice rough but steady. "Is it my watch already?" Thalen stared at her. His translator must be malfunctioning. "Your watch?" "Specialist, we are under active bombardment. The enemy could breach this bunker at any moment. How are you sleeping?" Nina sat up slowly, running her fingers through her short dark hair. She yawned, covering her mouth with one hand. "Sorry, sir. I was just catching some rest while I could. Is there a problem? Is there a problem?" Thalen's voice rose several octaves, his translator crackling with the strain. "We have been under attack for 6 hours. Every sensor shows enemy forces surrounding our position. We are cut off from reinforcements. We might not survive the night. And you ask if there is a problem?" Nina looked around the bunker, taking in the terrified faces of the other soldiers. Understanding seemed to cross her features. She stood up, brushing dust off her uniform. "Oh, I see. You've never worked with humans before, have you?" "This is my first assignment with a Deathworlder," Thalen admitted. "Command assured me that humans were disciplined soldiers. They said nothing about you sleeping through combat situations." "I'm not sleeping through combat, sir." Nina walked over to the main console and checked the sensor readings. "I'm sleeping during the waiting. There's a difference. The enemy is bombarding our position, but they haven't tried to enter yet. Until they do, there's nothing for me to do except wait. So I rest. When they come, I'll be ready." Bryn's voice came from across the room, trembling with confusion. "How can you rest? Don't you feel the danger? Don't you understand we might die?" Nina turned to look at the avian soldier. Her expression was kind, almost gentle. "Of course I understand. But being afraid and exhausted won't help us survive. Being afraid and rested gives us a better chance." "But how?" Morpha asked from her tank. "How do you make your body rest when your mind knows danger is near? It's impossible. Every instinct screams to stay alert, to watch for threats, to prepare to flee or fight." Nina nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that. But humans evolved differently than most species. Earth wasn't a safe place. Ever. Even when we thought we were safe, we weren't. Predators hunted us. Weather killed us. The ground shook and split open. The sky threw lightning and fire. There was never a time when danger was truly gone. She walked over to her pack and pulled out a water container, taking a long drink before continuing. So our bodies learn to have different levels of alert. We can be aware of danger but still let our bodies rest. If our ancestors couldn't do that, they would have died from exhaustion before any predator caught them. The ones who survived were the ones who could sleep with one eye open, so to speak. Thalen processed this information. His homeworld was a stable planet with minimal predators and predictable weather patterns. His species had evolved in relative safety, developing complex societies early in their history. The concept of sleeping while danger lurked was completely foreign to his biology. My grandmother told me stories, Nina continued, sitting down on a supply crate, about how early humans slept in trees because the ground wasn't safe. Big cats hunted at night. But if humans stayed awake every night, they'd die from lack of sleep. So they learned to rest even knowing something might be climbing toward them. They learned to wake up fast if they needed to. That ability saved our species. Another explosion hit, this one close enough that everyone felt the heat through the bunker walls. Every alien in the room flinched or cried out. Nina glanced at the ceiling, assessed the situation in a second, then looked back at Thalen. The walls are holding, she said calmly. We're still safe. For now. How are you so calm? Vorn asked, speaking for the first time in hours. Nina smiled slightly. I'm not calm, not really. My heart is beating fast. My body is ready to move if I need to. But I'm not panicking. Panic wastes energy. Fear without control gets you killed. So I rest when I can and I fight when I must. She lay back down on the floor, using her pack as a pillow again. Wake me if something changes, Commander. Otherwise I suggest everyone else tries to rest too. It's going to be a long night. Within minutes, the soft buzzing sound started again. The human was asleep, while explosions continued to shake their shelter and death waited outside the walls. Medical Officer Soren adjusted his scanning equipment for the fourth time, convinced the readings had to be wrong. The small medical bay attached to the bunker was cramped, barely large enough for him and his patient. His elongated fingers, perfect for delicate surgical work, moved across the holographic display with practiced precision. But nothing in his 20 years of medical training had prepared him for what he was seeing. Nina sat on the examination table, looking completely relaxed despite the periodic tremors that shook the bunker. Another explosion somewhere above them caused dust to fall from the ceiling. She didn't even flinch. Your cortisol levels are elevated, Soren said, his translator converting his melodic language into standard coalition speech. But not critically. Your heart rate is faster than baseline but steady. Your neural activity shows awareness of danger, but your body is not entering crisis mode. This should be impossible. Nina shrugged. I told Commander Thalen I was fine. You didn't need to scan me. The commander thought you might be in shock, Soren explained. He was a Valer, a species known throughout the coalition for their medical expertise. His people came from a world of shallow seas and gentle tides, where danger was rare and easily avoided. When he reported that you were sleeping during an active combat situation, I feared brain damage or a complete psychological break. But my brain is working fine, right? Nina asked. Soren gestured at the display floating between them. Your brain is working in a way I have never seen before. Look here. He highlighted a section of the scan showing her neural pathways. This is your amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and threat response. In every species I have studied, when this area activates strongly, it triggers a cascade effect. The entire body enters emergency mode. All non-essential functions shut down. Sleep becomes impossible. The organism is locked into a state of high alert until the danger passes. Okay, Nina said. So what's different about mine? Everything. Soren pulled up another image. Your amygdala is active. It knows you are in danger. But somehow your prefrontal cortex is regulating the response. You are consciously controlling hormones that should be automatic. You are manually adjusting systems that should be binary. On or off. Safe or threatened. There should be no middle ground. Nina leaned forward, genuinely interested now. I never thought about it like that. I just thought everyone could do this. No one can do this, Soren insisted. I have treated soldiers from 43 different species during my career. When they experience trauma or ongoing threat, they either fight, flee, or freeze. Those are the only options biology allows. But you have a fourth option. You stay aware but remain calm. How? Nina thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My dad was a firefighter back on Earth. He told me about something they taught in training. They called it compartmentalization. You put the fear in one box and the job in another box. You don't ignore the fear, you just don't let it control you. But that is a mental exercise, Soren said. A psychological trick. What I am seeing is biological. Your body is physically responding differently to the same stimuli that would incapacitate any other species. Maybe it's because Earth never gave us a choice, Nina said quietly. She looked at the ceiling as another explosion rumbled through the structure. Commander Thalen comes from a garden world, right? Stable climate, few predators, predictable seasons. Yes, Soren confirmed. Most coalition species do. It is the standard developmental path for intelligent life. Earth wasn't like that, Nina continued. My ancestors lived in a world that was actively trying to kill them every single day. Not just predators, though we had plenty of those. The weather could kill you. The ground could open up and swallow you. The water could rise and drown you. Fire could sweep across the plains with no warning. And the predators, the ones that hunted us, they were smart and patient and deadly. Soren listened carefully, his medical curiosity overcoming his own fear of the ongoing bombardment. So humans evolved to handle constant threat, Nina explained. If we panicked every time something dangerous was nearby, we would have burned out our bodies in days. If we ran every time a predator appeared, we would have exhausted ourselves. If we froze every time the ground shook, we would have starved. We needed a different strategy. Adaptation through sustained exposure, Soren murmured. Your species normalized danger. I guess so, Nina agreed. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old times, way back before civilization. Humans slept in caves and trees. They knew that lions and leopards hunted at night. They knew that snakes could be hiding in the grass. They knew that other tribes might attack. But they still slept. They had to. Sleep is not optional for survival. Soren pulled up a comparison chart on his display. Look at this. This is a Kelter brain under stress. The fear response completely dominates. Rational thought is suppressed. The body prepares for immediate flight. This is a Drendak brain under stress. The freeze response takes over. All voluntary movement stops. The organism waits for the threat to pass. He switched to Nina's scan. This is your brain right now while we are under attack. Fear response is present but controlled. Rational thought is fully active. Your body is maintaining normal functions while remaining ready for emergency action. This is unprecedented. Is it really that weird? Nina asked. It is revolutionary, Soren said. Do you understand what this means? Every species in the coalition operates on the assumption that soldiers will be terrified during combat. We design our tactics around managing panic. We rotate units frequently because extended exposure to danger causes complete psychological collapse. We lose soldiers not to enemy fire, but to their own biology shutting them down. Nina nodded slowly. How long has this squad been under stress? 74 hours, Soren said. Since the bombardment began. No one has slept. No one can sleep. Kelter Bryn is approaching complete neural exhaustion. The Drendak brothers have been frozen for so long their muscles are beginning to atrophy. Commander Thalen is forcing himself to function through sheer willpower, but his body is failing. That's not sustainable, Nina observed. No, Soren agreed. By my calculations, we have perhaps 12 more hours before the entire squad is combat ineffective. If the enemy breaches our position after that, we will be unable to defend ourselves. Not because we lack weapons or training, but because our own biology has betrayed us. Nina was quiet for a moment, processing this information. So humans are different because we can rest even when we're scared? You are different because you can regulate your fear response consciously, Soren explained. Your ancestors who could not do this died. The ones who survived passed on genes that allowed for conscious control over automatic systems. Over thousands of generations, humanity evolved a unique trait. You can function in sustained danger without breaking down. Can other species learn it? Nina asked. Soren considered the question. I do not know. The biology is different. But perhaps there are techniques, methods that could help. Your prefrontal cortex is more developed than most species, giving you greater control over emotional responses. But maybe, with training, others could strengthen those pathways. Another explosion shook the bunker, larger than the previous ones. Soren gripped the examination table, his body rigid with fear. Nina placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch steady and reassuring. Breathe slowly, she said. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Focus on the breathing, not the fear. The fear is real, but it doesn't have to control you. Soren tried to follow her instructions. His breathing slowed slightly. The panic that had been rising in his chest eased just a fraction. Humans have a saying, Nina told him. Mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Not the best saying, honestly, but there's truth in it. The danger is real. The fear is real. But we choose how much power we give it. Commander Thalen was reviewing the defensive perimeter sensors when his legs stopped working. One moment he was standing at the console, tracking enemy movements on the display. The next moment, his 6 legs simply folded beneath him and he crashed sideways into the metal floor. Nina was across the bunker in seconds. She caught his upper body before his head struck the ground, easing him down with surprising gentleness for a Deathworlder. Soren, get over here. The medical officer rushed over with his scanner, running it across Thalen's unconscious form. Complete system shut down from exhaustion. His body forced a rest cycle because he refused to initiate one voluntarily. He will live, but he needs at least 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. 8 hours? Bryn's voice was sharp with panic. We cannot afford to lose our commander for 8 hours. What if the enemy attacks? Nina looked around the bunker at the remaining soldiers. They all looked terrible. Bryn's feathers were matted and dull, his eyes sunken. Morpha's gills were moving erratically, her water tank cloudy from stress hormones. The Drendak brothers sat motionless against the wall, but Nina could see the tremor in their claws. Even Soren looked ready to collapse, his usually graceful movements now jerky and uncoordinated. How long since any of you slept? She asked, though she already knew the answer. 76 hours, Soren said quietly. None of us can sleep. Our bodies will not allow it. The threat is too immediate. Nina made a decision. Okay, new plan. Everyone is going to rest. Right now. That is insane, Bryn said. If we all sleep, who keeps watch? Who monitors the sensors? Who defends the bunker if they breach our position? I will, Nina said simply. The bunker went silent except for the distant rumble of artillery. Every alien stared at her. You cannot defend this position alone, Morpha said from her tank. There are at least 40 enemy soldiers surrounding us. You are one person. I'm not saying I'll fight 40 soldiers alone, Nina explained patiently. I'm saying I'll keep watch while you rest. I'll monitor the sensors. If anything changes, if they try to breach, I'll wake you all up. But until then you need to sleep. All of you. Your commander just collapsed. How long before the rest of you do the same? Our biology does not permit sleep during active threat, Soren repeated. We have explained this. Yeah, I know, Nina said. But you're going to try anyway. Because if you don't, you're all going to die. Not from enemy fire, but from your own exhaustion. She dragged Thalen's unconscious body over to the corner where she had been sleeping earlier. She arranged him carefully, making sure his limbs were comfortable. Then she grabbed every blanket and spare piece of fabric she could find in the bunker. What are you doing? Vorn asked, speaking for the first time in hours. Making a rest area, Nina said. She spread the blankets on the floor, creating a padded surface. Come on. Everyone over here. Bring your water tank, Morpha. We'll set it next to the blankets. This will not work, Bryn protested, but his voice was weak. Humor me, Nina said. Worst case scenario, you lie here awake for a few hours. Best case, you actually get some rest. Either way, you're off your feet and conserving energy. Slowly, reluctantly, the soldiers moved to the rest area. Nina helped Morpha position her tank, then guided Bryn to lie down on the blankets. The Drendak brothers positioned themselves on either side of the group, their reptilian bodies still tense and alert. Nina walked back to the main console and pulled up the sensor displays. She checked every screen carefully, noting the enemy positions, the structural integrity of the bunker, the remaining power levels. Everything was stable for now. Okay, she called back to the group. I've got eyes on all approaches. The sensors will alert me if anything moves within 50 meters. The enemy is maintaining their bombardment pattern, one strike every 8 to 12 minutes. No change in their behavior. You're safe. We are not safe, Bryn said. We are trapped in a bunker surrounded by enemies. You're safe right now, Nina corrected. In this moment. For the next hour, probably longer, nothing is going to happen except more bombardment. So rest. That's an order from your new acting commander. She heard Soren's soft laugh. You are not actually in command. Commander Thalen is unconscious, which makes me senior ranking officer present, Nina pointed out. So yes, I am. And I'm ordering all of you to attempt sleep. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Stop thinking about what might happen and focus on what is happening right now. The bunker fell quiet except for the hum of the electronics and Nina's soft footsteps as she paced between the console and the door. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Nina could feel their tension from across the room, their bodies wound tight with fear and adrenaline. She started humming. It was an old song her grandmother had taught her, something about stars and sailing ships and finding peace in the darkness. She didn't remember all the words, but the melody was simple and repetitive, almost hypnotic. "What is that sound?" Morpha asked. "A lullaby," Nina said. "A song we sing to children on Earth to help them sleep. My grandmother sang it to me when I was scared of storms." "It is pleasant," Morpha admitted. "The vibrations are soothing." Nina continued humming as she worked, checking sensors, making notes, occasionally adjusting the display settings. The melody filled the small bunker, competing with the distant explosions. After 20 minutes, she heard Bryn's breathing change. The rapid, panicked rhythm slowed. His body relaxed incrementally. Nina kept humming, kept moving calmly through her duties, projecting an aura of normalcy in the abnormal situation. Soren was next. His long body uncurled slightly, his fingers loosening their grip on the medical kit he had been clutching. The Drendak brothers took longer, their freeze response fighting against the pull of exhaustion. But eventually even they began to show signs of rest, their muscles releasing some of their tension. Nina stopped humming and watched them for a moment. They weren't fully asleep, not like she had been. But they were resting. Their bodies were recovering, storing energy, processing the trauma they had endured. It was a start. She returned to the console and settled into the commander's chair. The sensors showed no change in enemy position. The bombardment continued its steady rhythm. She pulled out a protein bar from her supplies and ate slowly, maintaining her own energy levels. An hour passed. Then two. The aliens slipped deeper into genuine sleep, their exhaustion finally overwhelming their fear. Nina remained alert, watching the sensors, listening for any change in the pattern of attacks. She had meant what she said. She would protect them while they rested. It was what humans did. It was what pack animals did. It was what soldiers did for each other. Another explosion rocked the bunker. Bryn stirred but didn't wake. Nina smiled slightly. They were learning. Their bodies were remembering that rest was possible even in danger. It was a lesson Earth had taught humanity over millions of years. Now she was teaching it to species who had never needed it before. She just hoped they would learn fast enough to survive what was coming. The alarm shrieked through the bunker at a frequency that made Nina's teeth ache. Every screen on the console flashed red. The main door groaned as something heavy slammed against it from the outside. Nina's eyes snapped to the structural integrity display. The outer seal was failing. "Breach in 30 seconds, she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. She was already moving, grabbing her rifle from where it leaned against the wall. "Everyone up. They're coming through the main entrance." The aliens woke instantly, but not in any useful way. Bryn shot to his feet with a screech, his wings flaring out in pure panic. Morpha thrashed in her tank, water sloshing over the sides. The Drendak brothers opened their eyes, but their bodies locked completely, unable to move. Soren pressed himself against the far wall, his medical training useless against the biological imperative to flee. Commander Thalen struggled to consciousness, his compound eyes unfocused. "Report," he tried to say, but his translator garbled the word. "Hostile breach imminent," Nina said. She had reached the choke point, the narrow corridor between the main door and the bunker's interior. It was the only way in. "I need someone on that console calling out enemy numbers. I need cover fire. I need somebody functional right now." Nobody moved. They were all awake, all aware, but completely paralyzed by terror. The main door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Smoke and debris filled the entrance. Nina dropped to one knee, rifle raised, covering the opening. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She could see shapes moving in the smoke. 4, maybe 5 figures. The first enemy soldier stepped through. He was Kelter, like Bryn, with brown and gray feathers and combat armor covering his chest. He held a plasma rifle. His eyes went wide when he saw a human in the defensive position. Kelters were a peaceful species. They didn't expect resistance. They certainly didn't expect a Deathworlder. Nina fired 3 rounds. Center mass. The soldier went down. 2 more enemies pushed through the smoke, moving fast. Nina adjusted her aim and fired again. 1 dropped. The other dove behind a piece of fallen door, returning fire. The plasma bolt went wide, scorching the wall behind Nina. "Console," Nina shouted without taking her eyes off the entrance. "How many are out there? Give me numbers." No response. She could hear panicked breathing behind her, but nobody was moving to help. Another enemy appeared in the doorway. Nina fired. The soldier stumbled back. But more were coming. She could see them gathering outside, preparing for a coordinated push. She had maybe 10 seconds before they rushed her position all at once. She couldn't hold against that alone. "Left side," she called out, not aiming the statement at anyone specifically. "Two hostiles attempting to flank. I cannot cover both angles. I need support now." Her voice was different than it had been moments before. Not louder but sharper. More commanding. The tone cut through the panic in the bunker like a blade through water. It was the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed, someone who was in control even when everything was falling apart. Commander Thalen's head snapped toward her. His training, buried under layers of fear and exhaustion, began to resurface. He had commanded soldiers for 12 years. He had drilled emergency procedures hundreds of times. His body remembered even if his mind was screaming at him to hide. He forced his legs to move. Each step felt like pushing through concrete, his biology fighting him every inch of the way. But he reached the console. His claws moved across the controls with automatic precision. 8 hostiles, he called out, his voice shaking but functional. 6 at main entrance. 2 attempting to circle around through the damaged ventilation shaft on the left side. "Thank you, sir," Nina said. "Can you seal that vent?" Thalen's claws danced across the screen. Emergency bulkhead deployed. Vent sealed. 2 hostiles trapped in the shaft. 6 on 6 then, Nina said. "Better odds." 6 on 2, Thalen corrected. "The others cannot move." "Then get down here, Commander," Nina said. She fired again, forcing the enemies to stay behind cover. "I need you." Something in those 3 words broke through the last of Thalen's paralysis. She wasn't ordering him. She wasn't demanding. She was simply stating a fact. She needed him. A human Deathworlder, the most dangerous species in the known galaxy, needed his help. He grabbed his sidearm from his equipment belt and clicked his way to the choke point. He took position on the opposite side of the corridor from Nina, his weapon trained on the entrance. His whole body was trembling, but he was there. "On 3 we suppress fire," Nina said calmly. "They'll rush us when we reload. Don't reload at the same time. Alternate. I go first, you cover. Then you reload, I cover. Understood." "Understood," Thalen managed to say. 1, 2, 3. They fired together. The enemy soldiers scattered, diving for whatever cover they could find in the blasted entrance. Nina's rifle clicked empty. She dropped behind the wall, ejecting the spent magazine. "Covering," Thalen announced. He fired steadily, his aim not as precise as Nina's but good enough to keep the enemies pinned. Nina slammed a fresh magazine home and popped back up. "Covered. Reload." They fell into a rhythm. Fire, cover, reload. Fire, cover, reload. The enemies tried to push forward twice, but coordinated fire from 2 different angles stopped them both times. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time felt strange in combat, stretching and compressing unpredictably. Then suddenly it was over. The remaining enemy soldiers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The sound of weapons fire faded. Smoke drifted through the destroyed entrance, but no more figures appeared in the opening. Thalen's legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, his weapon clattering to the floor. His whole body shook violently. "We survived," he whispered. "How did we survive?" Nina checked the entrance one more time, then turned to look at the rest of the bunker. The other soldiers were exactly where she had left them. Frozen. Useless. She felt a flash of frustration, then pushed it down. It wasn't their fault. Their biology had betrayed them. She walked over to where Soren was pressed against the wall. She touched his shoulder gently. "It's over. We're safe. You can breathe now." Soren's eyes focused on her slowly. "You fought them. Just you and the commander." "Yeah," Nina said. She returned to the console and started running diagnostics on the damaged door. "We'll need to reinforce this. They'll be back. Probably in a few hours once they regroup." "A few hours," Bryn repeated, his voice hollow. "And then we do this again." "Probably," Nina agreed. She pulled up the structural display. "Soren, I need you to check the commander for injuries. Bryn, can you help me drag some of these supply crates over to block the entrance? Kess, Vorn, I need you to inventory our remaining ammunition." Nobody moved. They were all staring at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Horror maybe. Or awe. Or both. "What?" she asked. "You nearly died," Morpha said quietly. "You stood in front of armed soldiers and nearly died. And now you want to work on fortifications." "Yeah," Nina said. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because," Thalen said from where he lay on the floor, Any normal being would need hours to recover from that terror. But you are already thinking about the next attack. Nina considered this. Oh, right. Well, terror doesn't help us prepare. So I'm choosing to do something useful instead. Now come on, we need to set up rest rotations again. Half of us sleep, half of us work. Commander, you're on rest first. You earned it. 3 weeks after the siege ended, Nina stood in a sterile white room on Coalition Station 7, watching a panel of high-ranking military officials review footage from the bunker. The recording showed her sleeping on the metal floor while explosions shook the walls. Then it jumped forward to her defending the choke point alone. Then to her calmly discussing fortifications minutes after nearly dying. Admiral Kelver, an elderly Veiler with silver-tinged skin, paused the recording. Specialist Grant, your psychological evaluation came back clean. No trauma markers. No stress disorders. How is this possible? Nina shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I did my job, sir. That's all. You did far more than your job, Kelver said. You kept 7 soldiers alive through an 80-hour siege. You established rest rotations under active combat conditions. You taught species who should have been incapacitated by fear how to function effectively. Commander Thalen's report suggests you saved not just lives but sanity. The commander saved himself, sir, Nina said. I just gave him a reason to move. General Thex, a 4-armed Drendak with battle scars across his scaled face, leaned forward. We have reviewed similar siege situations from the past 50 years. The average survival time for a small unit under sustained attack is 43 hours before complete psychological collapse. Your unit lasted 80 hours and repelled 3 breach attempts. The difference was you. The difference was rest, Nina corrected gently. Exhausted soldiers can't fight. I just helped them sleep. Which no one thought was possible, Admiral Kelver said. We have consulted with our top psychologists and medical researchers. The consensus is that your species has a unique evolutionary adaptation that allows sustained combat effectiveness. The Coalition needs this capability, Specialist Grant. We need you to teach it. Nina blinked. Teach it? Sir, I'm not a teacher. I'm a communications specialist. You were a communications specialist, General Thex said. We are offering you a new position. Instructor of Sustained Combat Operations. You would train mixed species units in techniques for managing stress and maintaining effectiveness during extended engagements. Your rank would be elevated to lieutenant. Your pay would increase substantially. I don't know if I can teach what I do, Nina said honestly. It's not something I learned. It's just how humans are. That is precisely why we need you, Admiral Kelver said. Commander Thalen attempted to implement your rest rotation system with his new unit. It failed completely. Without you there to demonstrate, to project calm, to model the behavior, the soldiers could not overcome their biological programming. We need you to develop a training methodology that works. Nina thought about Thalen, about Bryn and Soren and the others. About how terrified they had been. About how they had learned, slowly and painfully, to rest even when afraid. What happened to my squad, sir? They were reassigned to different units, General Thex said. Each one is teaching your rest rotation method to their new squad mates. With limited success but some success. The technique works if someone who has experienced it can guide others through it. So you want me to create more guides, Nina said. Exactly, Admiral Kelver confirmed. We want you to train a core group of instructors from multiple species. They will then spread the methodology throughout the Coalition military. It could save thousands of lives. Nina was quiet for a long moment. Finally she asked, when do I start? 2 days later, Nina stood in front of 12 soldiers from 8 different species. The training facility was a large room with padded floors, adjustable lighting, and sound systems that could simulate various combat conditions. Her students sat in a semicircle, watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. My name is Lieutenant Nina Grant, she began. I'm human. My species evolved on a death world called Earth where danger was constant and survival required adapting to sustained threat. I'm here to teach you techniques that humans use to remain effective during extended combat operations. A Kelter officer raised his wing. With respect, Lieutenant, we have already been briefed. You want us to sleep during combat. This is biologically impossible for us. You're right, Nina said. Actual sleep might be impossible. But rest isn't. There are levels between full alertness and deep sleep. Today we're going to explore those levels. She walked to the center of the room and lay down on the padded floor. First demonstration. I'm going to fall asleep while you all watch me. The sound system will play combat noises. Explosions, weapons fire, the works. I'll sleep through it. Then I'll wake up on command, fully alert. Watch carefully. She settled onto her back, closed her eyes, and began her breathing routine. 4 counts in. 4 counts hold. 4 counts out. Her body relaxed incrementally, muscle groups releasing tension from her toes upward. The sound system activated. Explosions boomed from speakers around the room. Plasma fire crackled. Voices shouted in panic. Nina's breathing never changed. Within 2 minutes she was asleep. The students stared in amazement. A Morphean officer approached carefully, scanning her with a medical device. Her vitals show genuine sleep state. Reduced heart rate, altered brainwave patterns, muscle relaxation. But her amygdala remains partially active. She is monitoring threats even while unconscious. Lieutenant Grant, Nina's assistant instructor, called out. You're needed. Nina's eyes opened immediately. She sat up, fully oriented. Yes. The room erupted in disbelief. A Drendak officer clicked in agitation. That should not be possible. The transition from sleep to waking should take minutes. You did it in 1 second. Humans can do it faster when necessary, Nina said. She stood up and brushed off her uniform. Now you try. Everyone find a comfortable position. We're not aiming for sleep. We're aiming for rest. Closed eyes. Controlled breathing. Conscious relaxation even while the threat simulations run. I cannot do this, the Kelter officer said. My biology will not allow it. Your biology will fight you, Nina agreed. But your mind can override it. Partially. Temporarily. Enough to matter. Just try. What's the worst that happens? You lie here awake for 10 minutes? That's fine. Lying down while awake still conserves more energy than standing at alert. Reluctantly, the students spread out across the padded floor. Nina dimmed the lights slightly and activated the sound system at low volume. Gentle rain sounds, not combat noises. She walked among them, speaking softly. Breathe with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Don't fight the fear. Acknowledge it. The fear is real. The danger in this room is not. Your body knows the difference even if it doesn't feel like it. Trust your body. Let it rest. Most of the students were rigid, their bodies locked with tension. But one, a young Veiler named Prex, seemed to be following instructions. His breathing slowed. His long fingers uncurled slightly. Nina knelt beside him. Good. You're doing well. Stay with the breathing. Let everything else fade into background noise. 5 minutes passed. 10. Prex's body language shifted. He wasn't asleep, but he wasn't in full alert mode either. He had found something in between. Okay, Nina said softly. Everyone open your eyes. Slowly. No sudden movements. The students sat up. Most looked frustrated. But Prex looked surprised. I felt it, he said. For just a moment, maybe 30 seconds. I felt the tension leave my body. I felt rest. 30 seconds? Another student scoffed. That is nothing. That is everything, Nina corrected. Because yesterday he couldn't do it at all. Today he managed 30 seconds. Next week maybe he manages 2 minutes. The week after, 5 minutes. Small victories add up. In combat, 5 minutes of genuine rest can mean the difference between being sharp enough to dodge or being too slow to survive. She looked around at her students, seeing the doubt in their faces mixed with something else. Hope maybe. Or possibility. Prex just proved something important, Nina continued. He proved that biology isn't destiny. Yes, your species evolved on safe worlds. Yes, your instincts tell you that rest during danger is death. But instincts can be trained. Responses can be modified. You have brains capable of complex thought. Use them to override the simple programming that says panic is the only option. Prex raised his hand hesitantly. Lieutenant, when we were lying there, you said the danger in this room is not real. But in actual combat, the danger is real. Will this technique still work? Honestly? I don't know, Nina admitted. It's harder when the threat is real. Much harder. But it's possible. I've done it. Commander Thalen did it. The others in my squad learned. Not perfectly. Not easily. But they learned. And that learning kept them alive. She walked back to the front of the room. We're going to practice every day for the next 6 weeks. We'll increase the intensity gradually. Sound simulations. Light simulations. Eventually mild physical stressors. We're going to teach your bodies that rest is possible even when your instincts scream otherwise. Some of you will learn faster than others. Some might never fully learn. But everyone will improve. And those improvements will save lives. The class was silent. Then Prex stood up. I volunteer to continue, Lieutenant. If I managed 30 seconds today, I want to see what I can do tomorrow. One by one the other students stood as well. Even the skeptical Kelter officer. We are with you, Lieutenant. Teach us how Deathworlders survive. Nina smiled. Not just survive. Thrive. That's the real lesson. Humans don't just endure danger. We adapt to it. We make it normal. We find ways to rest, to laugh, to live even when death is close. That's what I'm really teaching you. Not how to sleep through combat. How to remain human, or Kelter, or Drendak, or whatever you are, even when everything tries to strip that away.